For our review video, we will be discussing primary and secondary deviance. Primary deviance, according to Conley, is the first act of rule breaking that may incur a label of deviant, and thus influence how people think about you and act toward you. Now, in order to explain how primary deviance turns into secondary deviance, it is important to note that deviance is subjective. Behaviors are deviant only when society labels them as such. So, members of society who interpret certain behaviors as deviant then attach this superficial label to individuals. As a result of this new label, people may continue to break rules and fit the mold of society's expectations. This is known as secondary deviance. It's all about people who are deemed deviants internalizing their new identity and acting out accordingly. A concept that explains the transition between primary and secondary deviance is labeling theory. Labeling theory was created by Howard Becker in 1963. It takes the view that people become criminals when labeled as such and when they accept the label as a personal identity. Once a person has been labeled by others through secondary deviance, it is common for that person to incorporate that label into his or her own self-concept. They develop a stigma, which is a powerfully negative label that greatly changes a person's self-concept and social identity. Think about this. Someone in high school that has been labeled as a nerd, for example, might begin to think of himself or herself as a loser due to other people's opinions and treatment. Someone who has been stigmatized usually has lower self-esteem and may even behave more deviantly as a result of the negative label. The stigmatized person may find it easier to come to terms with the label rather than try to fight it. Imagine two high school girls. Both girls are good students, good athletes, and have never been in trouble with the law. Occasionally, both girls will have a few drinks with their friends on the weekend or during school breaks. Let's further assume that one of the girls gets caught drinking by the police. She's arrested, kicked out of sports, and has to go through alcohol counseling, and ends up drinking even more. This behavior, after she is caught and labeled, makes her deviance secondary. Primary deviance turns to secondary deviance the same way a snowball rolls down a hill. In the early stages, a snowball only grows a little bit, the same way that primary deviance gradually builds up and starts off slowly. But the more snow the ball picks up, the ball begins to grow bigger and move faster and just get out of control. In a similar way, deviance grows exponentially. The more someone is labeled, the more that person will assume the deviant role they are assigned to by society's norms. The metaphor is not exact because there's a clearer split between primary and secondary deviance. The snowball just grows continuously without a break, but the assignment of a label marks a distinct transition between primary and secondary deviance.